In your own words, when you hear the word diabetes, what do you think?
The question can be answered so many ways, but basically it can be a very scary word. If you're ignorant of what the word is, it's not scary, but when you know what it is, it becomes very scary, because the thought that may come in your mind that, you know, whatever religion you are, you're going to pretty soon meet your maker, because it has a lot of negativity to it. When you talk about maybe losing your arms and legs and your sight, and just being completely laying immobile in a bed, and you've got days or hours, days to live, it gets pretty scary, because anytime you hear about the subject, you usually hear about the worst part of it. They don't hear about, well, how it starts and how you can handle it and treatment of it and so forth and that. You just get the negativity of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Elizabeth? When you hear the word, what do you think then?
I always thought, oh gosh, you can't eat what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no more candy and all the stuff that you know,
Mm-hmm.
you've grown accustomed to eating, and that you won't be able to eat that anymore.
Mm-hmm. So, tell me about, you're the person that has the diabetes, is that correct?
We both do.
You both have diabetes?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your experience with diabetes.
My experience was that you don't lose everything you want to eat. Just in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that you would always eat, you just have to have occasionally. But there's no problem with what you eat. My biggest fear was having to go on insulin,
Mm-hmm.
which I did, and it's no problem. It's really better.
Mm-hmm.
When you need it, you need it. It makes it easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Jack, what about you? What's been your experience with diabetes?
Being told that I have it and not knowing it. You know, you think everything's great, and then all of a sudden one day you're laying on a gurney in the hallway in the hospital, and they figure they forgot about you, but eventually somebody shows up within, it seemed like a day or two, but it's an hour or so, and they said, well, we think you have diabetes too. And, no, I don't have it. Well, but you do, but you don't know you have it. And then you have to start looking at life completely different, everything about it. But when you start out as a child, as a junk food junkie, and that's the ignorance I was referring to earlier, and you just eat that stuff your whole life, you program yourself to that, nothing else, you know. And by the time the damage is done, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's like driving your automobile with the new tires on it. The guy at the station makes sure it's right when he leaves, but you neglect not to check your air pressure. Eventually it goes down and down, and by the time you discover the situation you're in, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
You got to buy a new tire, but unfortunately you can't buy a new body. So we need to be educated as kids. But the problem is, it's not just the kids; it's the parents. You're working on a third generation of ignorant parents. I mean, you know, they take the easy way out. They microwave this, and they take you to the McDonald's. They stick a bottle of pop in your hand. I mean, when I was a kid, if I had an RC Cola and a chicken leg, I was on cloud 9. You know, so it actually started after World War II with the easier way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And the American people need to be educated as to what a human being physically body is and what kind of food we could consume. You wouldn't put water or kerosene in your car to run it. You have to have the right fuel, and so we need to learn how to use the right fuel. But if you don't develop those taste buds when you're very young, and when it's been totally wiped out with sugar from candy, fast foods, and yummies that Grandpa gave us, you know. Mm-hmm. Grandparents are as bad as parents because they spoil the children, but it's okay, we can give them back. but they also give them back bad habits, you know. Mm-hmm. One particular grandpa in Florida that I heard of bought his granddaughter a big bag of M&Ms because he loved her. If he loved her, he wouldn't have bought her any. But it's to get back to the ignorance again. We American people think we're so intelligent, but we're really not.
So tell me again your definition of ignorant.
Ignorance is is not being around an environment or society that teaches you the basics of life. That's ignorance. It's the society. The society you're in, if that society doesn't teach proper things, or we won't call them necessarily proper, but what's good for you, then you won't learn anything. It's the same as a person putting a phonograph on a record player and you drop the needle down. Once the needle hits the record, you're in that groove, and nothing's going to change unless somebody puts a big bump on it. It's going to play the same tune. So our society is like that record. We drop the needle down, and you've got one person doing the same thing as the other one did it, and the other one did it. And the person says, well, if it's good enough for my daddy, if it's good enough for my grandpa, it's good enough for me. But ignorance should not be done that way, you know. I'm sure that my grandparent would be much more proud of me if I did the right thing, if I did what he did. Because he had to learn his lessons the hard way. So I should learn from him, from his mistakes. But it doesn't work that way nowadays. You'll see a young family, you'll see a girl that's 25, 26 years old. She's 300 pounds. And she's got 2 or 3 kids. 2 she's dragging and 1 she's carrying. And she's that bad a shape at 30. What's she going to be at 40 or 50? And what's the kids got to look forward to? It's another stupidity, ignorance again, you know, repetiting itself. So if you're aware of the problem and you look around you, it's so sad to see the world. And if you study history, the Incas, the Mayas, the different civilizations that anywhere from 2 to 10,000 years ago, they had their own system of air conditioning, toilets and so forth and stuff, but yet their great society disappeared off the world. What happened to them? It could be a simple thing of nutrition. They eat the wrong thing, got a hold of the wrong thing, or if ignorance of certain things, you know. So knowledge is wisdom, or wisdom is knowledge. It depends if you got the knowledge and you use it, then it becomes wisdom. So we're a society of ignorant people, and we're programmed by the idiot box. The old guy in Tibet says it's a bad thing to look at the glass picture, referring to the TV, because you're being programmed. The mother takes the child, and she's on the phone talking, or she's twittering, and the child's watching television, the idiot box, the cartoons. And of course, they're going to advertise Sugar Loops and all that sort of stuff, and therefore you're setting it in that child's mind. That situation works the same with children and food as it does with adults and religion. Don't mean get religion put in, but you take a child to a church where he wants to go or not, you drag him along. And as a child, he hears what's said, but when he's 40 years old, they hit that computer button in the mind, and you flash back, and that develops what type that person is. What they believe, where it's right or wrong is what they believe. But watching TV on the average of 6 or 8 hours a day, you're just feeding information on top of information. And so as a kid, when you go to a movie, we'll say back before we was all born, Roy Rogers or whatever it might have been, or Gene Autry, and the good guy and the bad guy, when you come out of the theater, on your way home, you become that person, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry. You want to act like him, do like him, because you're a program from the movie. And unfortunately, we've been done that way with our eating habits. And what you do as a kid is what you do as an adult. Because there's no such thing as a kid and an adult. Adult is just a bigger kid.
That's really true.
And that's about it, I guess, you know.
So Elizabeth, how long have you had the diabetes?
Oh gosh.
15 years.
No, about 24 years.
Wow, a long time then. And how did you happen to get diagnosed?
I went for my yearly eye exam, and the eye doctor told me there was something going on with my eyes, and he suggested that I not miss my yearly physical,
Mm.
which was still about 5 months away. And so I went home and I called my doctor and said, could I get in early to do it? And he said, sure. So I went in, and that's when I found out I was diabetic.
So it was good that you followed up and didn't wait.
Right.
So did you get put on insulin, or what happened?
No, not then. I've only been on insulin for about 3 years now.
Okay. And you went home, and then what happened after you got the diagnosis and you went home?
A little bit of depression, because it's quite a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to work and mentioned, I said, I'm just going to really have to change, how I cook and that. And we had the office that I worked in every Friday, a different person brought something for breakfast.
Mm.
So when it came my time, they said, don't bring any of that weird stuff. So I went home, and on Friday then I made a breakfast casserole with turkey sausage and egg substitute, and as much as I could, change the recipe. And I took it to work, and everybody ate it, and it was all gone. Then I told them what it was. And they didn't seem to mind. It was still good.
Still good. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you take care of yourself now? What do you do to take care of yourself?
I've changed my diet. We don't eat as much. We don't eat that much fried foods.
Mm-hmm.
When we used to eat a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't give up fried potatoes once a month or so. I have a little bit of that, but mostly it's just change my diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I exercise, but I'm having a hard time with that now because of other health problems.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it difficult.
When you do exercise or get activity, how do you do that? What kinds of things do you like to do?
I do a lot of exercises when I'm sitting down.
Mm.
And I'll walk around inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the exercise bands.
Mm-hmm.
I use those, but that's about
Mm-hmm.
all that I can do right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you're being able to maintain your blood sugars so that they're in a good range?
Yes, they're doing better.
Good for you. Good for you. And Chuck, what about you? How long have you had diabetes?
Has it been about the same amount of time?
No.
I'd say,
It was
the older you get, the faster time goes. So I'd say it's been at least 15 years. But I think how I found out, I was visiting a friend at his business, and then we went out to eat. And I think that the restaurant we ate at, it's the only one I've ever ate where they put the sugar in the coffee for you.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they put too much sugar in my coffee. And of course I ate, and everything was fine, and I got home, and I beat her home, and I thought, well, I'll get some work done before she got there. So I was out mowing a small section of the yard, looking at the mountains where we live. It was up on the hill, like a beautiful view of the mountains. And I was pushing the mower, and it's just like he was in the room, somebody dropped down the blinds. It just went completely dark, and that's all I remember. Next thing I know, I was in the ambulance, and I was in the hospital, and I was in the hallway like I was mentioned earlier, and they said, we think you've got diabetes. No way. But that's when I found out. Mm-hmm. But when I have my coffee, I don't drink a lot of it, once in the morning, maybe once in the evening. But instead of putting 3 sugars in, I put 1 or less than 1 in. Mm-hmm. I just cut back on everything. Mm-hmm. Just and I cut down on the volume of food that I eat. I definitely don't go to buffets, because an hour later you're cussing yourself out or mad at yourself because you ate that and you're miserable. So
buffets are a curse.
They are a curse. You think you have to get your money's worth, and actually it gets you. So no buffets. But and also, I don't eat 3 big meals a day. I just kind of nitpick at things, maybe 4 or 5 little snack meals. But breakfast is my main meal. Rest of it, I just kind of pick at it. And so.
And is that working pretty good for you? So you keep
Well,
better?
it's kind of helped keep my sugars not perfect, but I'm not in the danger zone anymore. You know.
Yeah.
So I could do better. We can all do better.
Yeah.
You know, there's always room for improvement, but humans are a creature of habit, and when you've had 40 or 50 years of a habit, you just don't change it overnight. And actually, if you try to, you'd be better off just to go eat whatever you want and die and be happy, I guess. But if you just try to stop cold turkey on something with the metabolism of your body, it's very hard to do. So you have to do it in steps. Just take a little bit here, a little bit there, and you'll find out it's much easier to do it that way. And it also takes a craving away. You don't want to deprive yourself of something you really like.
That's why I have a little bit of fried potatoes.
You treat yourself. You know, good doggy, here's a biscuit. You know, so you do take you just don't give them a handful, you just give them one.
So how do you, or do you help each other? Do you help each other? Or do you just fuss at each other?
We fuss at each other, but we watch out for each other.
Yeah.
I remind her to take her medicine. She reminds me, you shouldn't, you've had enough of that today, or whatever. And of course, you step on each other's toes sometime, but you know, that's part of the battle.
Kiss and make up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
So,
It's fun to argue.
Well, sometimes you got to just get that spirit of life in there, right?
Yeah.
So
but
that,
it gets the negativity out. And the great part about having a battle is there's always a make-up comforts.
So I know that you're part of the support group as well.
Yes.
Right. So how did you get involved with the support group? How did that happen?
Well, I read about it in the paper, and we decided to go and see what it was all about. And so that was back when it first started, and we've been going and have seen it come along, and it is really coming along. It's really developing.
And that's been like 10 years.
Well,
Has it been that long?
Maybe 7 years.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but it has helped us.
And there's quite a few people go. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And
If you can get them off the couch and the TV, you know.
yeah.
But the thing about going is getting back to what I was talking about, the ignorance of the thing. If you don't know the information, you don't know you're doing something wrong. But if you can go say, whoa, I've been doing that and I shouldn't. So if you put the information out there and people take the time to go listen to it, information is knowledge and knowledge is wisdom. So you can help yourself. But if you don't get up off the couch or whatever you're doing to go find out about the information, you're not going to learn anything. So education is a backbone of everything, you know. And I think this should really be taught in kindergarten. You know, if you got it as a little kid, then you know. You can't wait till you're messed up and then learn about it.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes people are a little reserved or shy,
Yes.
and going to a strange meeting of people is difficult for some people. Have you seen some new people come into the coalition, to the support meeting?
Yes.
And does the group welcome new people?
Yes. And I was one of the new people, and several meetings that we just sat there and didn't say much of anything. And but when you listen to the others talk and tell about something that happened to them or a problem they've had and how they've overcome that, then you're more willing to speak up and say something. You know, well, I have a problem that's this, that, or the other, and somebody will offer you information. Or at least tell you where you can find the information that you need. And then you open up. So when another new one comes in, it's the same process.
Mm-hmm. Now, you didn't have any trouble, did you,
Me?
joining the crew?
Well, usually my problem is I can't find anybody to talk to. They can talk back to me. I don't know how to put it in other words, but I ought to carry on the conversation I'm interested in. But, you know, like the people mostly in the group are 50, 60, 70 years old, and everybody sits around and is totally quiet. So somebody like myself may crack a joke or two to break the ice, and you get one person talking, and then I'll get somebody else talking, and the first thing you know, as the old saying is you get to know your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've met people who are from this area, who've lived in Michigan and Ohio and different places and moved back, and they bring back all their stories. So it's like getting to see a free movie or get to read a good book. You get the stories from them and the stories of their families and so forth, and who they were, where they were from, and who they married and how they met. Well, like you asked me, well, how did you get here? How did you get to Lebanon? Well, you got a week or two, and I'll tell you. So, but anyway, and when people tell you their problems, you become more relaxed, and you're not feel as threatened, and you can let more of your personal life come out. And I found out at my age that a person will tell a complete stranger their story and their life before they tell their next of kin.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way, you know, and you learn from each other, you know, what they did and how they handled their problem and how it affected them. And of course, you can look at them physically, and they can look at you physically and say, yeah, they need to do that and they need to do that. You can always see the other person's problem, but it can help you to face your own, to see your own self.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Now, and a lot of people tell me that they're hesitant to talk about having diabetes. Has that been a problem for y'all, talking about
No.
it?
No,
I try to tell people, but sometimes you're talking to a wall. You know, they don't want to hear, they don't want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand, as you didn't understand when you found out.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd like to tell them and give them an idea. Well, they might say, well, I have that problem sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what that is.
Mm-hmm. When in all the years you've had the disease and lived with it, what's been the best thing that's happened when you've gotten information? Has it been through the doctors, nurses, or has it been through a group like the support group?
Well, I've learned quite a lot with the support group. And it's been mostly things that I never thought to ask the doctor about.
Mm.
Because they're on a different level, and they're more on the level with you, where the doctor says, in my training, and so they've been trained to do certain things and ask certain questions, but another person has the problem that you have, they'll tell you different.
I sometimes talk to people about what it's like to live with the disease. It's one thing to get diagnosed or get told by the doctor you have it, and here's your medicine, and go home and do this. But it's all of those other minutes of the day and hours of your life that you don't talk to a doctor, but you still have to live with that disease that people get in trouble about.
Right. The one thing that I worried about at the beginning, especially after I started taking the insulin, was the low sugars.
Mm-hmm.
That really scared me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you get into it, then you realize just what you have to do when you get low sugars.
Mm-hmm.
You do it, and then it's okay.
And I think that you're probably not unlike many people who take insulin. They're often very afraid of the low blood sugars.
Yes.
I bet that's a topic that comes up at your support meeting. People talk about that?
What's that?
No. The low blood sugars.
Mm-hmm.
I ought to bring that up.
No, but when it happens to you, it can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you're driving down the road and you're listening to your favorite tune on the radio and everything's perfect, and all of a sudden 1 second goes by and somebody crosses a yellow line. boom, and it's already happened. And if you're by yourself, it can be very scary if you don't, unless you've got something you can take and drink or whatever. But sometimes you can't even manage to get up and go somewhere to get help or call help or anything. So if you learn enough about it to be aware of it when that feeling's coming on, and to think about it, it's tricky. A high sugar is the same feeling as a low sugar, but you just have to know something's out of kilter. And you check your sugars. If it's high, you get up and walk around and go fight somebody or kill a bear or do something. But and otherwise, you take something to bring your sugars up.
Yeah.
But
But if you have a really, really low blood sugar, I've found a couple times that it's just been too low and I'm too shaky to even test my blood sugars. But I know that it's a low blood sugar, so I'll just go to the refrigerator first, and I always make sure I have juice in there and take a drink of juice.
Or she left that's part A. She left out part B. Sometimes I go get it and give it to her.
Yes, I've had that to happen.
Do you have any symptoms that you know are telling you your blood sugar's dropping?
I just feel very weak, shaky, and that's what I'm saying. I'm so shaky that I can't test my blood.
You can't really carry a good thought in your mind, and you can have chills. It can be a number to the thing, but it's just like you hear a knock on the door. You don't know who's behind the door, but you need to get up and do something. You need to check the door. So it's just the human body telling you need to react to do something.
Yeah. And at first I didn't realize what you should do, and so when it would get real low, I would just drink juice and eat something till I felt better. And that's not the right way to do it, because then you end up with a very high blood sugar.
Yeah. And did your doctor tell you all that, or is that something you kind of learned on your own?
I kind of learned that on my own.
Yeah.
Getting back to doctors and nursing, it's a sad thing to say that you don't get total information from your doctor and nurses, because after all, when you go to work to do a job, you do your job and that's about it, and you do what your job requires. And the doctors are getting paid so as the nurses, and they have to see so many people, so they don't have time to pinpoint every item and so forth and stuff. So the group that we join, you get a bunch of information all at one time. But the doctor says, well, you need to go see an eye doctor, and that eye doctor says you need to go see this doctor and that doctor. First thing you know, you're going back to half a dozen doctors, and all these tests are being done on you, and you don't really find out anything. But if you're in a room full of people, and you're looking at several hundred years of an experience, everybody's 60 years old, you put all those years together, and no two humans are exactly alike, so you have all those experiences to draw from. So you can take those, and when those symptoms appear to you, you can go fall back on what you heard. It might be that, and you have a more knowledgeable way to handle the situation.
I think that's good information.
I did end up going to a specialist, went to an endocrinologist.
Did you?
And of course that's right along his line of work, so you get more information, and he knows the questions to ask.
So it's different than seeing your regular doctor.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And once I got onto insulin, then I felt like I needed that little extra there, and so I started going.
And can you see an endocrinologist here in Lebanon, or do you have to go?
No, I have to go to Bristol.
How do you spell that?
No.
A doctor goes to school and he reads a book. Okay? He's reading the book, he's perceiving the information, but he hasn't physically lived that life. You can read a book all you want to, or look at a movie to study something other, or a cadaver or whatever, but until your physical body experiences that, and you're in that age bracket, you don't have 100% knowledge. You have an educated guess. Educated guess is not nothing near the real problem. So.
Yeah.
No, but if he has enough patience, they'll all tell him.
Experience is the best teacher, don't you?
Yes.
So right now we're having real concerns about type 2 diabetes, and particularly with the children, you know, because they're, too many of them are gaining weight and not as active. So I wondered if you had any ideas or suggestions about things that could be done in the community to change that.
Well, education is, the place to start. But it's been several months, maybe 6 months or so, that I saw on television a show where I don't remember the fellow's name. He has a cook show, or on the cooking channel. But he wanted to go to the schools and teach the children what they should eat.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to the school and he tried to show the people in the cafeteria what they should feed them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like doing it because it took longer.
Mm-hmm.
It took longer to make a salad than to throw the fries in the oven to cook
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And but he tried, and he took the food and went into the classroom and showed the children how you make this and how you make that.
Mm-hmm.
And when lunchtime came and they fed him a healthy meal, every one of the trays was dumped full into the trash.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want it.
Mm-hmm.
So he went back again the next day and he said, "What do you want?" And they said, "Chicken nuggets." So he said, "Does the chicken have nuggets?" Goes through the whole thing, and he says, "Now here's the breast," and he cuts off the breast, and here's the leg, and here's the thigh, and here's the wings, and all that. And he says, "Now," and he just had the carcass, and he says, "Now that's what's left." He says, "So we take that and we put it in this grinder," and he ground it all up. And he said, "Then you mix it with this, that, and the other, and then you take them out and you form them, and that's your chicken nuggets.
You deep fry them.
And then you deep fry them. And how many want chicken nuggets? Every one of them wanted it." And he says, "There's not any nutrition in them at all."
Mm-hmm.
But he says that's what they want, because that's what they've gotten.
If you do grocery shopping, which we all do, and you eat at restaurants, which we all do, if you notice in the last 10, 15 years, you can hardly get chicken on a bone anymore. It's all processed. Mm-hmm. Could I have a chicken leg? No, we got a patio, we got this, we got that. And your frozen foods in restaurant, mm-hmm. they don't really have chicken on a bone. And that's where you get your flavor from, is from the bone.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do we make the change? How do we get kids to start eating?
There's nobody here old enough, I don't believe, in this room that I know of. Surely not her. A lot of time you've heard the old saying, "We need to get back to basics." Well, kids, all they do is sit around and watch TV or Twitter or talk on the phone. They don't do any physical movement. But a simple thing is a tin can called kick the can, or as some people refer to it as hide and seek. You sit there and you draw straws or whatever, and you become it. You got to stand there with a can, and you got to go, and you got to leave and go out and find everybody where they're hiding. And you're caught, and you run back to the can, put your hand on the can, and so therefore you got that one caught. And once you round them all up, you get to go hide, and the first one you caught has to be it. Well, that's activity, or riding bicycles, or just hiking. To get kids, everything's involved in sports. It doesn't have to be sports. They need to have like community games, a community get together. They put all this money in the playgrounds. You don't see too many kids using them, but if they just got, when I was growing up, neighborhood kids played with each other. They don't do that anymore. If you went out and climbed trees, ride bicycles, tricycles, anything to keep moving. If you want to, play cowboys and Indians and kill each other off. At least you got activity,
Well, we're from the generation where television first came in, and television didn't start until 4:30 in the afternoon.
You had to look at this picture with the Indian head on it for 2 hours.
Yeah. So, we got home from school and we made sure that our homework was done. And then if everybody was done with their homework, the TV could come on, you could watch a show. Now, kids watch shows from when they wake up, when they're little, till they go to bed. And that's all they do. They don't go outside and play, and we would much rather go out and play than to stay in.
There's a word that's been put in our society in the last 25 years. That word is fear. You get all the young mothers that are 18 to 40 years old. You know, some of them go to college and then they have their kids later in life, which would drive me nuts if I did that. But anyway, the point is that the word fear. They're afraid to let their kids go outside and play. They're afraid to let them go to the playground because somebody's going to kidnap them or kill them, whatever the deal is. So you've created that bubble of fear in society that they don't want to let the kids out of sight. You know, and when we was kids, when the sun came up, we was out the door. They had to come looking for us at midnight. We would run up down the road under big time, you know. And basically, the freedom has been taken away from the kids, or they're not allowed to have freedom because they substituted that with television and games. And you know, of course, you got it's too hot, you can't go out. You got to rub this on, you got to rub that on. You know, I never knew too many kids, and I grew up that died from being outside, getting hot a little bit. They come in the house, and fortunately they drank Kool-Aid, but anyway, they survived. But as long as you're out and about and keeping that body going, you know, and not only keeping the body going, but when you're out moving around, you're also working the mind, and you know, and so that you're getting an all-around good mind and body exercise there, you know. We used to build forts and make things. We didn't go out and buy stuff at Wally World. We wanted a kite. We got out some branches and newspaper. We made a kite. You know, we made spears and daggers and built tents and cabins and then modified our bicycles and stuff like that. You know, and it keeps the old mind going there. You know, but if he can do it, I can do it too. You know, that sort of stuff like that. Creativity.
Yeah.
And also, you can get the parents to take the children out because heaven knows parents, you know, like we need to exercise, so take your children out.
You know, the fear thing of letting your kids out of your sight. If a community, a neighborhood got together, you know, they put it in the paper. If they want to get together for their church, whatever they want to do, as long as you have people congregating together, says, well, okay, we're going to let all of our kids go out and play on Thursday and Friday. That's going to be their play days. If you've got a dozen kids out there playing, ain't nobody going to kidnap one of them. The other 11 will kill a guy. You know, safety in numbers. You know.
Yeah,
you're right about that.
So you know, if you got one kid out running around by himself, male or female, whatever, yeah, they might be attacked. But if there's a group of kids playing, and they've been taught, you know, that watch out for strangers or unusual things. And watch out for each other, you're not going to have any problems. But people, they can feed off of fear very easy. You know, one tells one person something, another, and they add a little bit more to it, and the next add a little bit more to it. First thing they put it completely out of proportion, you know, and they create more problem than what there really is.
I remember something when my son was in high school. The school that he attended, they decided that they would put a salad bar in the cafeteria. And everybody said nobody's going to use it, you know. But it ended up, after a while, that was the most popular lunch, was the salad bar.
So sometimes you have to go against what people are saying.
Right. At first, you know, not very many ate it. But after a while, my son came home and said, boy, there's really a line at the salad bar now. So, it got around to where most of them would eat salad.
Something about social pressure, too, isn't it? When
One person
doing it.
If Johnny did it, it must be pretty good. I think I'll try it.
Yeah.
You know, follow the leader.
Or you say to your friend, I wouldn't be caught dead in the salad bar line, and then of course that friend feels it and passes it on, and so you know.
Yeah.
But
it's a little tricky sometimes to create that positive energy around things you want people to do.
Yeah, there always has to be a black or white stallion to get the herd going.
But I asked my son, why did you go to the salad bar? Because the line was shorter. So that's why he started, but he stayed with it.
Well, good for him. Good for y'all. That's a good thing. Well, I think that I've asked you, and we've talked about a lot of things around. Before we end, is there anything else you want to add, particularly about thinking about diabetes or prevention and the way you manage the disease?
Well, I think as many advancements as they've made, it makes me look at it differently. And I think that someone that's newly diagnosed wouldn't feel that it's, not that hard to manage. I remember that my father-in-law was a diabetic. He was diagnosed type 1. Mm-hmm. And he had to take insulin shots twice a day, but he had the syringe with the needles, and he had to have them sharpened all the time. And he didn't test with blood sugars, he did the urine. Mm-hmm. And so it was much harder for him. Mm-hmm. And he was, at the time they called brittle diabetic. Mm-hmm. So he really had a hard time of it, but he managed it. Mm-hmm. And, he drove around the car with a carton of 7-Up on the floor in case he needed it, and going back and forth to work. Mm-hmm. So, but he managed. And it's so much easier now to manage than it was then.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
Yes.
Yeah. Chuck, is there anything you want to conclude with?
Well, I can conclude with this. We are in Lebanon, Virginia, after all, and we're not in the Bible Belt. We're right close to the edge of it, where all the stitching is. And besides teaching this basic food, bad eating habits we have, should be start taught in the kindergarten, grade school, and so forth. That if you put it into the community, but nobody's ever mentioned this. If and when you go to church on Sunday, instead of having nothing but hell and damnation preached to you, there should be done a little bit of programs worked into church society to help the human body, to learn how to feed the human body, because after all, supposedly if the church is right, if you believe it, the body is the temple, and actually church is within. And if you don't take care of the within part, it's going to show on the outwards, like me, the belly, whatever the stuff is. But, it wouldn't hurt to integrate that into the society of church to take care of the human body. After all, who or whatever the Creator is, I'm sure He loved us enough. He wanted us to be healthy. And the old saying, He only helps those who help themselves. So you need to help yourself a little bit by taking care of yourself. That way you can put another 5 or 10 in the community plate next week.